Is there a motorcycle that people both loved and feared? There is. The 1987 Honda CR500R. By the late 1980s, the world of motocross had reached its wildest point. The era riders still call the 500cc two-stroke wars. Every brand had its monster. Kawasaki fielded the brutal KX500. Yamaha fought with the YZ490. Suzuki had already bowed out with its RM500, leaving the giants to duel for supremacy. And in the middle of it all stood Honda, bold, red, and unrelenting. On American AMA tracks from California to Ohio, the CR500R wasn't just another contender. It was the standard of raw, unfiltered strength. A 491 cubic centimeter single that could lift its front wheel with a breath of throttle and break your resolve if you weren't ready. Riders didn't just race it, they survived it. And 1987 marked the moment when Honda's beast was at its peak. Just civilized enough to control, still savage enough to terrify. Kickstarter slams. The engine cracks to life. The hills tremble. The beast returns. To understand the legend of the 1987 CR500R, you've got to trace its bloodline, a line forged in dirt, noise, and sheer horsepower. It began in 1981 with the CR480R, a big, air-cooled brute that shook riders to the bone. It was fast, no question, but it ran hot, vibrated like a jackhammer, and demanded a steady hand just to stay upright. Then, in 1984, Honda doubled down with the first CR500R, still air-cooled but bigger, meaner, and even harder to control. By 1985, Honda finally gave the monster a leash. Liquid cooling arrived, a 5-speed gearbox replaced the old 4-speed, and a new frame made the bike narrower and tougher. The 1986 model smoothed the handling a bit, yet its power hit still struck like a sledgehammer at half throttle. It was a bike that punished mistakes instantly, but rewarded bravery like nothing else. Then came 1987, the turning point. Honda didn't try to tame the beast. They refined it. Better suspension, improved chassis geometry, and a power curve just civilized enough to keep you from looping it on every start. Through it all, Honda stayed true to its philosophy. Brute torque over peak RPM, instant punch over high rev finesse. The CR500R wasn't about perfection. It was about domination. The king class of motocross, where only skill and a little bit of madness kept you alive. Stand next to a 1987 CR500R, and the first thing that hits you isn't the size, it's the stance. Tall, narrow, and purposeful, it looks more like a weapon than a motorcycle. Every inch of it was designed to serve one purpose: transfer raw power to the ground and keep the rider alive long enough to enjoy it. Its frame was hand-welded from chrome moly steel, braced crosswise for rigidity, but still light enough to flex when landing hard off a jump. The wheelbase measured 59.1 inches, with a seat height of 37.4 and a ground clearance of 13 inches, tall even by modern standards. The riding position was high and centered, letting a rider shift weight forward to attack corners or swing back for brutal hill climbs. It felt like sitting on a live grenade, balanced perfectly between control and chaos. Suspension was state-of-the-art for its day. Up front, a 43mm Showa cartridge fork offered 11.8 inches of travel, soaking up deep ruts and whoops that would rattle most bikes apart. In back, Honda's Pro-Link single shock delivered 12.2 inches of travel with a piggyback reservoir, fully adjustable for preload and rebound. Compared to the 1986 model, the 1987 tracked straighter, resisted head shake, and stayed planted when charging wide open across rough ground. Braking was equally serious. Larger front discs, a new rear hydraulic setup, and classic 21-inch front/18-inch rear wheels wrapped in tall knob rubber built for traction, not comfort. At 223.6 pounds dry, It was astonishingly light for a bike pushing over 60 horsepower. There was nothing extra, nothing gentle, just steel, suspension, and the nerve of the person holding the bars. This was the physical embodiment of Honda's precision meeting pure aggression. At the heart of the 1987 CR500R beat an engine that seemed less like a power plant and more like an explosion trapped in steel. A 491 cubic centimeter single-cylinder two-stroke, it used a bore and stroke of 89 by 79 millimeters with a compression ratio of 6.8 to 1. Feeding that hungry cylinder was a Keihin 38mm flat-slide carburetor, and keeping it alive under punishment was a liquid cooling system that finally let the beast run longer and harder than its air-cooled ancestors. On paper, it produced around 60 horsepower and roughly 43 foot-pounds of torque at about 5,500 revolutions per minute, numbers that would humble most modern four-strokes even today. But what made this engine legendary wasn't the peak output. It was how it delivered it. There was no power valve to smooth things out, no electronics to rescue you if you got it wrong. The power band came on like a lightning strike, a massive surge of torque that hit almost right off idle and kept building until the world blurred. Test riders called it the hammer, because once that torquey hit, it didn't climb gently. It slammed. Those who rode it never forgot that first kick. If you weren't ready, one racer recalled, it would throw you over the rear fender before you even finished breathing. Compared to its rivals, the CR stood alone. Kawasaki's KX500 was powerful, yes, but its torque curve wasn't as brutal. Yamaha's YZ490 felt lighter, simpler, but it simply didn't have the sheer punch or the composure under load. Then there was the sound, a hollow, deep brap that echoed across dunes and canyons, unmistakable to anyone who's heard it. One kick, one explosion of life, and before you knew it, the hill behind you had vanished. This was not just horsepower, it was defiance, forged in aluminum and fire. To ride a 1987 CR500R was to make a deal with danger and hope it kept its end of the bargain. Cycle World's February 1987 review said it best, a tamed beast but still a beast. That line summed up everything this machine was. Honda had managed to smooth the sharpest edges, but the heart of the monster was still very much alive. Compared to the 1986 model, the new CR delivered its power more predictably. The torque didn't strike quite as violently off idle, giving riders just enough warning before the surge. You could roll into a corner, feed in the throttle, and feel the rear wheel hook up instead of break loose. The refined Showa suspension kept the front end planted even when blasting out of deep ruts or hitting square-edge bumps at speed. The bike tracked straight, stable, and terrifyingly fast. But make no mistake, this was still work. The Kickstarter could bruise a left leg after a long day, and the throttle pull was stiff, demanding real strength to modulate that savage torque. The vibration through the pegs and bars was relentless, yet strangely addictive, the kind of feedback that reminded you every second that this was a living, breathing machine. The smell of burned two-stroke oil, the echo of that hollow growl through your helmet, the rush of wind as the front tire clawed for air. It all blended into one raw, exhilarating sensation. Riding the CR500R wasn't about comfort or ease. It was about control over chaos. It felt like commanding an explosion. Only this time, you were the one holding the fuse. The late 1980s were the golden age of big-bore brutality, a time when every manufacturer swung for the fences in the 500cc two-stroke wars. And standing shoulder to shoulder with Honda's CR500R were two worthy opponents, Kawasaki's KX500 and Yamaha's YZ490. The KX500 was every bit as quick on paper, pushing roughly the same horsepower, but it delivered its power differently. Its power band climbed gradually, a long ramp of acceleration that built speed rather than detonating it. That made the Kawasaki easier to ride for mortals. but it also meant it lacked the instant, explosive torque that gave the CR500R its legendary reputation. The Yamaha YZ490 was the opposite. Lighter, simpler, and brutally old school. It hit hard but lacked refinement. The engine vibrated more, produced 4 to 6 fewer horsepower, and its chassis felt less stable when the track got rough. The YZ had spirit, but the CR had dominance. What made Honda's Red Beast untouchable wasn't just power. It was durability and precision. The gearbox shifted cleaner, the clutch rarely slipped, and the frame stayed tight even after seasons of pounding. Mechanics loved it. Riders trusted it, and the magazines of the day agreed. Both Cycle World and Dirt Bike ranked the 1987 CR500R #1 overall in the open class. Because in 1987, Honda didn't just win races, they redefined what too much power really meant. It wasn't about control anymore. It was about surviving the storm and smiling while you did. After 1987, Honda began to soften the monster. Just a little. Between 1988 and 1992, the CR500R grew smoother, the vibration eased, and the power delivery became more manageable. It was still a handful, but the teeth had been filed just enough for more riders to handle it. By 2001, the line came to an end. Emissions laws, noise limits, and the rise of four-strokes finally closed the book on the most powerful production two-stroke Honda ever built. But legends don't die. They evolve. Across the American heartland, the CR500 engine lived on, roaring its way through hill climb competitions, sand drags, and even supermoto circuits. Riders still trusted that 491 cubic centimeters hammer to do what it always did best: launch like a rocket and terrify the unprepared. And in garages across the country, a new generation of builders started creating AF500 hybrids. The CR500's engine dropped into the lighter aluminum frame of a CRF450. It became the ultimate outlaw machine, a symbol of rebellion and raw power in an age of electronics. Collectors took notice too. A clean, original CR500R now commands $7,000 to $12,000, while museum-quality restorations, like the beautifully preserved example at the Barber Vintage Motorsports Museum, stand as mechanical monuments to a lost era. Today, riders still call it the Widowmaker, and not without reason. It was the last of its breed, the final, unapologetic two-stroke that refused to bow to comfort or conformity. For the riders who remember, it remains a badge of pride, the sound of pure freedom echoing through the dirt. The 1987 Honda CR500R stood at the crossroads of two worlds, where raw mechanical strength met the sharpest edge of Honda engineering. It was the perfect storm of precision and chaos, built for an era when motocross was still a battle between man and machine. No traction control, no electronics, just steel, oil, and nerve. The CR500R didn't ask for finesse. It demanded respect. It rewarded skill, punished arrogance, and gave riders a taste of something modern bikes have long since buried: fear. That mix of adrenaline and reverence is what made it unforgettable. Because not every motorcycle was born to be tamed. Some were created to remind us that deep down, we're still afraid, and we love it that way. Would you dare to kickstart a CR500R? Tell us below, are you Team Brave or Team Sane? Like this video if you've ever heard that haunting two-stroke thunder echo across the dirt. Power, fear, respect. The legend still breathes.